Are you tired of living your life with the shoulda, coulda, woulda?
And the have-to, must-haves, and got-tos.
Well, in today's episode, Sharlene and I talk about the 9 strategies that you can take on today in rewriting your story. Doesn't have to be your whole life, can just be one area. But these 9 strategies will be proven to work for you. Your story is important and you have the power to rewrite your story. And make sure you stick to the end to listen to number 9.
Welcome to Rewrite Your Story, the podcast where change begins with you.
We're your hosts, Stephen and Sharlene.
As professional coaches and mentors trained in various modalities, we have helped hundreds of people
Bridge the gap between the person they are
and the person they want to be.
We bring you conversations with real people who have overcome real setbacks.
You will walk away with practical steps to find more clarity, alignment, and success in any area you want to improve.
So join us and discover how you have the power to overcome, to change, and to rewrite your story.
So pick up the pen. Your new chapter starts now.
Hey everyone, welcome to season 2 of the Rewrite Your Story podcast.
That's right. We're actually going to shake it up a bit now. So what can we expect from season 2, Steve?
We've dropped the life and now it's just Rewrite Your Story podcast. And the reason for that is we found that while interviewing people, it's not just about your life.
Yeah.
Some people don't want to rewrite their whole life. They just want to write an aspect of the life. We've got some great interviews in season 2, but one of the key things in season 2 is you're going to hear more from Sharlene and myself in how you can rewrite your story, whether it's in life, whether it's in business, whether it's personal, whether it's emotional. We're going to give you some of our wisdom, some of our tips that have helped us redefine and rewrite areas of our life.
So hopefully you can take something away for yourself and hone in on any particular area that you wish to rewrite.
Now, season 1, we had some amazing guests. We had guests from all different walks of life. And when Sharlene and I were in reflection of the guests and reflecting on the different guests we had, we really wanted to take out some gems and really redefine what it is to rewrite your story. But we want you to make sure that you listen to each episode because each episode has its gems. You know, one of the things that I guess I learned in season 1 from one of our guests is when trying to rewrite your weight journey, you know, and losing weight, this person's mantra became, you can either face your stuff or stuff your face. But her mantra was, face your stuff, don't stuff your face. And that was just a really cool little mantra.
And it's so simple, right? Then it's so obvious, like we forget about these little things, but it's these little one-liners that we can take away and really think, wow, how can I apply that to myself? What can that change in me?
So I think, Sharlene, the important thing is to start off season 2 is actually defining what is rewriting your story.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people would think, you know, oh, I have to go back and rewrite what I did before, but we can't actually change the past. What we can do, however, is change what we do now to change our future. So we can take small steps along the way. We can do little things right now, right here, to make changes in our daily actions.
And I think it's really important when we're talking about rewriting your story and rewriting the past, what we're actually talking about is looking at it from a different narrative.
That's right. Having a different perspective and a different mindset.
And it's our narrative of today that changes how we see things.
So true. So true. Sometimes we think back, oh, you know, if only I could change that, this would happen. But we can't really do that, can we?
We have no control over what past events are.
Right.
So, Sharlene, what are some ways that you would suggest people can really look at changing the narrative of their past?
Absolutely. I think one of the things I always like to think about is seeking a professional to get an outside perspective on things. You might have this whole big story of how you've seen things, the way you've grown up, but having an outer perspective can help you see it from a different angle and maybe see some good that came out of those stories from the past and how that's actually shaped who you are. And
can our past align with future goals and future values?
Oh, absolutely. As long as I think we're not dwelling there, so we're not dwelling in the past, but we're learning from it, and we can actually take those lessons that we've learned and actually reshape our future.
So what are the narratives or what are some of the tools that you've used to help your clients as a counselor?
Absolutely. A lot of mindful journaling and reflective journaling, which helps us to question ourselves and have really good prompts to ask ourselves really deep, meaningful questions to think, well, how is my past behavior serving me in the now, and how is it going to help me in the future?
And share some of the inspiring stories that you got from some of the interviews.
Look, I had so many of them. One of them's just been the absolute resilience of these people that have gone through tragedy and they've moved past those tragedies to see this is actually something that serves them. This is something that's who they become, and they wouldn't change it for the world. They've actually found a new purpose through this whole thing.
You know, if I think about one of the standout interviews for me, it was episode 21. And if you haven't listened to episode 21, we interviewed Dave Album. And Dave Album had a real problem with alcohol, was basically sitting with a gun by his side one night when he reached out and called AA. And that totally changed his life. But not only did it change his life, he is now the world leading expert when it comes to firewalking. Just by that one phone call led to so many trajectories and so many differences in his life.
That's right. One of the guests that we had really resonated in that, we sometimes go through the hard stuff, but it's the hard times are the actual test times that we go through.
And I believe that was episode 28,
yes,
George Sedaris. Yeah, so George Sedaris said there's no such things as hard times, only testing times. And I thought that was really good because that, again, is a lesson of resilience.
Yeah.
Why is resilience important in rewriting your story?
Look, I think it's so important because that's what's going to help carry you through when you're feeling really down and you feel like you can't go any further. You actually learn how strong you are. And when you come out the other side, you realize how resilient you are because you've actually pushed through that. When you push through that, you become more resilient because every time you do that, every little push that you make makes you realize how strong you actually are.
And I guess that's where we stand in our personal power. Mm-hmm. So another way of rewriting your story is understanding your own personal power. How your personal power actually allows you to break free from limiting belief, social expectations, and what society or past traumas or what societies will call as social norms. But when we stand in our own power, and, standing in our own power isn't always about our own strength, is it?
That's right.
It's also about a higher strength.
Absolutely. Sometimes we forget that we have a higher strength and we think that we have to do it all by ourselves. But there is actually that higher power that can actually help us, and we can just lean on that extra strength to get us through.
Yeah. And, whatever your beliefs are, relying on a God or relying on your higher power allows you actually then to step in and sit in your full power. And I think that's really important.
I honestly believe that's where a lot of our intuition comes from too, because we think, we're doing it by ourselves, but you'll often, how many times have we found that time where we're just sitting there and we're not even thinking of anything, but this thought just drops into our mind, like this moment of inspiration, and we did not know where that came from. That, I believe, comes from that higher power.
Yeah, and I think there's a scripture that I rely on a lot when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And it's Philippians 4:13, and it says, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me.
Yes.
And so my higher power is Jesus Christ, and that allows me to stand in my own power because, for me, it's confirmed in his word that I can actually do all things. When it comes to rewriting my story, I can do that through him who gives me strength.
Absolutely. We're not relying on a man or like anyone outside of us, but forces within us, that Christ in us, that we can actually know who we are.
And I'm really excited from one of the interviews, a guy named Nico. His journey was an amazing journey where he called on his higher power and it really changed him. But then it was a discovery of what that higher power was in his life. Yeah. So I'm really excited. And that's going to be in the next 3 or 4 weeks, Absolutely. That interview. I think the next part of rewriting our story is self-reflection and growth. What role, Sharlene, as a counselor, what role does self-reflection and introspect have in the process of rewriting your story?
Absolutely. Well, they say that hindsight is 20/20, right? So having that opportunity just to really reflect helps you to take yourself out of that picture and look back on it from a new point, a new mindset and new eyes. So you're not looking at it the same way you used to look at it. Having a new set of eyes to look at a situation helps you to push away from that feeling of angst, that feeling of anger around that, and help you to think, well, what else could I have done differently? No.
Yeah, and I had a major breakthrough, and you're aware of the breakthrough that I've had in the last 4 weeks. And it's something that's actually I've been working on for all my life, ever since you've known me. And Charlene, for those of you who don't know our story, Charlene and I have actually known each other for over 30 years. So we were quite young when we met. We've been married for 23 years. And it was an area of struggle that I had in a lot of my life. And I'm not going to go too much into detail because I'm just sitting on it because I know that it's going to birth something new in our lives. But what it was, with not giving too much detail, is that I was a constant yo-yo dyer, constant reflector of, I'm not good enough. And I spoke a bit about it in the past around imposter syndrome and how it was a real thing. And I just in the last 3 weeks, I was just sitting down, just in a quiet place of reflection. And it was actually 4 a.m. in the morning. And I was just put the question out there. And one day I will share more, but I know in my spirit that the time is not right. And I was just seeking, the answer to this particular area. And the answer came to me in that still, quiet voice. And, I know it was from God because, if you look at the book Elijah, it didn't come in a loud rumbling. God said, I'm not in the mountains, or I'm not in the thunder. And it came in that stillness. And for me, it was, Stephen, the problem is you're so disconnected from your body because you were so overweight when you were a child that you disconnected yourself from your body. And can I tell you instantly that imposter syndrome had gone, everything had gone. And it was like instantly when the realization came. Now, for me, it was a miracle. And I give, I acknowledge God who gave me that answer. And it actually was like a domino effect.
Yeah.
And from that day on, even when it came to people in my life, I put strict boundaries in place that I didn't want to put labels anymore on food. There's no such thing as good or bad food. It's either serving you or not serving you at this moment. And so, for instance, for me, one of the changes in the last 3 weeks, and I've dropped kilos, is because I'm not labeling food anymore. I'm not saying, that food's good or that food's bad. I'm actually saying, that doesn't serve my body. That doesn't serve my goals at the moment.
So you're listening to your body.
I'm listening to my body because I now am, and I'm actually saying to myself, I'm loved. I accept my body. My body is the vehicle that has been given to me through this journey of life. And it was only through self-reflection and being open to the answer that this transformation came. Now, there's so much more to this transformation, but this episode is not about that, and it will be released in another episode.
That's right. So basically, it sounds like you've been able to identify these patterns with the grace of God, like giving you that just one word.
Yeah.
One word it took, isn't it, after all those years? And it just changed everything for you, right?
Yeah, I've totally been set free.
Yeah. So sometimes it's just about sitting still and really being willing to listen to what is available to you, that knowledge that is available out there.
And you said something really important, sitting still. So many people, self-reflection is about stilling yourself or going into that quiet place of contemplation and just calming the monkey mind.
Oh, yeah. How many times do we think, just sitting, if we're being still, we're wasting time? Like, how many times have we heard that? Even in our own heads, we think, I'm sitting still, so I'm wasting time. I should be doing something else. And that's just the distraction of an enemy to take you away from that beautiful inspiration that's ready to us when we sit still.
I think another step is creating some positive changes. So one of the positive changes I've created is to change the way I speak around food, around my body, around the clothing. If something's too small, I'm not like, oh my God, I put on weight. Blah, 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 blah. I don't go down that track because it's actually not serving me any good. I'm just like, oh, well, it doesn't fit today, but you know what? I'm taking steps every day, so it will, So it's actually really being consciously aware of the narrative in your mind. And when I feel that things are coming up that is bringing me, and what I realized is I've been set 3, but there's 40 years of habits to reprogram there. So when a habitual thought or a habitual pattern that is not in alignment with this breakthrough occurs, one of the ways I use to overcome that, one of the tools I use is a scripture in the Bible that says, I'm wonderfully and fearfully made.
Yeah.
So in my mother's womb, he formed me. So that is constantly going in my mind. Hey, I'm wonderfully and fearfully made. He formed me in my mother's womb. If he formed me, I'm perfect the way I am. There's no two buts.
So true. So true. And we forget about that, don't we? We forget that we are wonderfully and fearfully made in his image. And we just do things, whatever, and then we blame ourselves and then we hate on ourselves and we forget that who we are, like, as people.
So that's one of the positive changes I've created in this area.
Wonderful.
But what are some other positive changes that people can create, Sharlene?
Absolutely. Well, it's not just in health aspects, but even in relationship aspects. Sometimes we get so caught up with playing these mind games with each other, expecting the other person to read each other's mind. And then we get so upset when they don't do what we wanted them to do because we didn't tell them what we wanted in the first place, because they should guess, right? They should know us.
So open communication could be a positive change.
Absolutely. Open communication, being willing to just break down those barriers and just be vulnerable to express what you want, what you need in your life, what you need to receive from the other person. And don't be afraid of that person rejecting you, because if they're going to reject you, then that's not meant to be in the first place. The whole thing of, just being open and being able to break down those barriers to just communicate. Just be free, just be open, and trust that that other person's got your back.
Talking about relationship, we've got a few podcasts coming up on relationship, and one is on the 5 love languages and the 5 love languages in practice as well. So just by listening to that one podcast and seeing the 5 applications of the love languages and how you can apply them could be a positive change in relationships.
That's right. And it's not about using those to say, oh, no, that person needs to understand how I react or how I express love. But it's actually about us individually thinking, how can I change within myself? What steps can I take to demonstrate love to that other person and to show that person that they're loved?
And I think I really want to stress in this part here that when we create positive change, obviously every change is hard at first, and it's like building a muscle, and we all know that. We need to remember that force actually negates. Yeah. So when we force things to happen, we're actually going against the grain. It's actually harder. Whereas we need to make the decision to change, sit in that decision, and then allow ourselves to take those steps without forcing results. I think that is one of the biggest traps. And when you stop forcing results, it takes away striving.
That's not to say that you can't be persistent in what you're going for. There's a big difference between being persistent and forceful. When you're being forceful, you're having this whole anxiety, this whole stress about it, that it should be this way, or it needs to be this way, or it must be this way. Those are all negative modes of being and ways of being. Like, it's very harsh if you think about it. Like, we don't like to be told you should do this or you should do that. So when we put that out, this should happen or this has to be this way, we're putting pressure on ourselves.
The next step is overcoming adversity. So what you want to do is explore ways that you can overcome challenges in your lives. Build yourself up a bit of a toolbox of resilience. When I say a toolbox of resilience, what I mean is stories of people that are resilient, but also tools that you could use. For instance, mine, it's that one thing when, the old habits pop in, it's no, hang on, I'm wonderfully and fearfully made. That's not serving me today. So have a bit of and that, for me, that just really shifts my mindset. And also really important when overcoming adversity is know that you're not alone. You're not alone in this. And someone has probably already gone through what you're going through or already changed the area that you're changing as well. And we see it a lot through videos and testimonials and podcasts. But then there's also a danger in this area when we begin to compare ourselves to others. I think comparitis is the biggest steal or thief of joy that there is at the moment.
Absolutely, because we get so paralyzed in thinking that's, oh my gosh, just the person's gotten so far and this is all I'm right. But they forget that how far have you come already? We forget to look back and think, well, I've already come this far. And this is all just a journey. It's a process. They say that, like happiness and all these like special emotions that we have, it's not a destination. It's a choice. We can choose to be happy and we can choose to make these choices every single day to change the direction of our future. And it doesn't matter like the person ahead of you that's made it further, but they've only made it further because they've only done that before you. Yeah. So it's just about where we are. It doesn't matter where someone else is, but still look to someone for mentorship, see someone who's gone through that same situation and come out the other side, and look for those people that have what you want right now and just look at them for inspiration, not comparison.
The next step in rewriting your story is mindset shift.
Oh my gosh.
Probably the hardest. But you know what? Not only is mindset, people think, mindset shift is a new thing, but it's actually not. It's been around since the beginning of time, and I'm reminded again of a scripture in Romans that says, be not conformed to the patterns of this world, but be thee transformed by the renewing of your mind. And so even Paul was speaking about this renewing of, the Apostle Paul was speaking about this renewing of the mind, and that we're only transformed by the renewing of our mind. So I think of it as garbage in, garbage out, like if you're going to put garbage in your mind, garbage is going to come out. So choose what you put in your mind. Hang around dogs, you catch fleas. Like we've all heard that saying. Yeah. But it's not only around friendships. It's what are you listening to on TV? What are you reading? What are you
putting in your ears?
What are you putting in your ears?
Through your eyes?
What are you putting through your eyes? And we live in a society that there's a lot of free access to pornography. If you haven't listened to the episode on pornography on season 1, make sure you do listen to that. That is episode 16 with J.K. Mazy. And he talks about the dangers of pornography and how it is eroding masculinity in our world today and how to overcome that. But it's not just pornography. It's a lot of things out there that are actually eroding not only the female spirit and the male spirit, but also our identities. And so we need a mindset shift of what it is to be true to you as well. So be protective. Honor your mind. Be protective of what goes in there. So again, you're building that resilient tool.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of those things is that you can listen to really good nurturing podcasts, really good programs, to really be careful with what you choose to put through your eyes and your ears, because you've only got one mind. You've only got one brain. And at the end of the day, that's yours, and it's yours to treasure for the rest of your life.
So then why putting stuff in causes mind shift? Because it's the law of association. If we start associating, even if it's not friendship, but just listening or reading, then those things that we're listening become ingrained in us, become part of us, and they actually become more powerful than the negative thoughts. They become more influencing than the doubt and the unbelief. And therefore, when we start having negative thoughts, we can actually reframe that, and we start to practice self-love, self-acceptance. We start to practice resistance and resilience in the face of adversity.
Absolutely. We're not saying you can't just watch some junk now and then, but it's good to balance it. You want to balance that with some really good soul-enriching content for yourself.
Another way you can rewrite your story is set some real clear intentions.
Yes.
What areas of your life do you actually want to rewrite? What are you putting around you to remind you of that? Sharlene and I, we probably take this law a bit to the extreme of setting intentions, because we don't have a dream board.
We have a dream room.
We have a dream room. And in that room is, I won't call it a shrine, but there's definitely a table where we've got all beach stuff.
A display.
A display, because, of some of our goals. We have post-it notes with words. We have vision boards. And that creates a whole atmosphere of us setting our intentions as well.
Absolutely. Like, it's just embracing yourself with the, like, the whole visual aspect of what you want to achieve, or how you imagining how you will feel when you get that. And it really, like, when you set yourself in that mind frame, it really helps to bring that out a lot quicker. It just really reminds me of the whole concept of sowing and reaping, right? When you sow something, the farmer sows something, he knows what to expect because he's put it in there, and nothing he can do is going to make it grow any faster or slower. But what he can do is water it every day. He can water it, he can feed it, he can nurture it, but then that's all he can do. He can wait for the crop. You know, he just has to do his part. And then when things seem like nothing is happening, everything is happening in the background.
Yeah, that's so true. The next part in rewriting your story is community and support. Now, we've said this many times. It is one of the biggest lessons we learned through our journey of isolation when it came to our story around infertility and just don't want to be around anything. We weren't healing. We were actually hurting more. Healing happens in community.
Yeah.
Now, don't get me wrong. Hurt happens in community as well, but healing happens in community as well. And so what I really encourage you is find community of like-minded people, whether that's a spiritual community, whether it's a mentorship community, whether it's a coaching community, whether it's a book club with similar likes to you. Find community, friendship, and accountability.
And that's not to say you're going to find people that just tell you what you want to hear, because that's not going to help you to grow. You want to find people that will love you, nurture you, but also challenge you to grow and challenge you to do things that maybe a little bit outside of your comfort zone that will help you to grow.
Healing happens in community.
Absolutely.
I can speak about this a lot, but I think that's a complete sentence. I think healing happens in community is a complete sentence.
Yeah.
And lastly, what you want to do is have a continual growth and evaluation. Always evaluating what you're doing.
Absolutely. There's a saying, Stephen, that reminds me of this. It's from a doctor called Dr. Richard Carlson, and he once says that you become what you most practice. And that is basically the crux of things. Like, we think that, I'm just an angry person, or I'm just impatient, or I'm just this or that. But it's only because we practice that for such a long time that we've become perfect at being impatient. We're being really skilled at being angry, or being skilled at whatever it is that we think we are in the moment. But where our identity, as I've said many times, is not set in stone. We can always be different. We can always take small steps along the way to change and to practice a new way of being.
So what you want to do is remember, it's not set in stone. And a lot of what's set in stone is actually habits. And habits can be overcome by simply changing or renewing of your mind. And as you go along this journey of rewriting aspects of your story, remember to celebrate. Celebrate your successes. Celebrate things that you've done. Celebrate the milestones you've come away. If you have a problem, just say you want to rewrite your story around hydration, because you don't drink enough water. Every time you have a glass of water, just celebrate that. It doesn't have to be a huge celebrate. Don't celebrate a glass of water with a glass of wine. Probably defeats the purpose. But you just want to celebrate the little things in life.
Absolutely. And there's so many ways that you can actually encourage yourself to do that as well, by just making it easier for yourself. Perhaps if it's hydration, like you said, some people find water just too hard to swallow. So some people put peppermint or lemon or something that doesn't actually put any sugar in it, but it just makes it more tasty. Just little hacks.
So remembering you are worth rewriting those areas of your life.
Yeah.
You're worth it. And no matter what the struggle, no matter what the challenge is, rewriting aspects of your life can lead to a more fulfilling life.
Yeah.
So we've got you. We've got you on this. So this is our first episode of season 2. We're really excited again to bring you a new and exciting Rewrite Your Story podcast. Sharlene, I'm sure sometimes I'm going to say rewrite your life story. It's just going to come out. But
that's right.
Yeah, habits, right? So just to recap, so the first one is
Personal empowerment.
personal empowerment.
Taking back your power.
Taking back your power and relying on a higher strength. The second one is
Self-reflection and growth.
always have self-reflection in what's happening in your own life and where you want to go. Number 3.
Creating positive change. Just taking those small steps along the way.
Yeah, and breaking those habits. Number 4.
Overcoming adversity.
So have the resilience, overcome those adversities, face those challenges head on. Number 5.
Mindset shift.
Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And as you fill your mind, then you're able to overcome those negative beliefs. Setting intentions is number 6. So make sure you don't have to do what we do. You don't have to have a visualization room, even if you have a visualization board, or even if it's just writing a gratitude journal or setting the intention for the day of what you're grateful for. Number 7.
It's community and support. Healing comes in community.
Healing comes in community. And number 8 is continual growth and evaluation. Always keep growing. And number 9.
Woohoo! Celebrating progress.
Celebrate your progress. So that's it for today's episode, and we look forward to having you next week on another episode of the Rewrite Your Story podcast.
Thank you for joining us on the Rewrite Your Story podcast.
We hope you found this episode enlightening.
For more information on the topics discussed, please visit our website at stephenansharlene.com.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on your favorite platform, share it with your friends, and follow us on social media at Stephen and Sharlene.
Until next time, stay informed and inspired.
This is Stephen and Sharlene signing off from the Rewrite Your Story podcast. Thank you and stay blessed.